And welcome. It's the Black Psychologist Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. We're back like we never left. Episode 41, I think we're up to now. We are just rolling along. And we appreciate, of course, everybody being here. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here listening and watching us, and we appreciate that. As always, I am and will be one of your humble and gracious hosts, Dr. Kyle Osborne. He is I, and I am him. And you guys know by now, the people who have been riding with us, listening to us, and watching us. I'm never here by myself. I'm here with the one and only. He's got ice in his veins, blood in his eyes, faith in his heart, and love in his mind. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jason Coleman. What's going on with you, good brother?
What's going on, bro? It's been a little minute, man. How you been doing? How's everything going on?
Everything is good, man. Everything is well. Thank you. How's everything with you? How's your mental health?
Good, man. Just how we do, man. Just working hard during the week and trying to relax when we can on the weekends and all that. But other than that, can't complain. It's good to kind of for us to try to get back in a regular groove. As always, just want to thank everybody who takes time to kind of listen and like the videos. And we appreciate it. So, in a good mood, man.
Absolutely. I gotta give a shout out to the fit that you rocking right over there, bro. I got the priorities,
All
mental
right.
health. I see you. I see
I,
you. You
appre-
know what I mean? Look good, brother. As
I
always, you know
appreciate
we.
it, man. I
You know.
appreciate it. I mean, listen, man, we'll talk about that, later. I mean, of course, I'm gonna get you a hoodie, man. But I got some announcements on that coming pretty soon, man.
Absolutely. As well, you should continue to represent and continue to promote because
But
absolutely.
definitely gonna get you a hoodie, man. Well, it's gonna be t-shirt time soon, but I got you, man.
Yes, sir. All right, man. So let's get into it. Like you said, it's been a little bit of a minute and a lot has happened, man, in a lot of different areas of of culture. So we'll catch everybody up. The Super Bowl just passed, so we saw the LA Rams go out there and take care of their business. So that was a good game. The whole playoffs have been
Oh
entertaining,
yeah,
that type of
man.
playoffs.
I mean, kind of disappointed what happened with Odell Beckham. But I'm just, I'm glad he got to contribute at the level he did before he got hurt. But anytime you see that, man, it's always disappointing whether you like the guy or not personally. I like him, but whether you like him or not personally.
Yeah, I'm happy he got another opportunity, and like you said, he contribute. Hopefully, the injury he's able to recover, get back to health, and we'll see if they make another run out of it.
Yeah, man. I mean, unfortunately, this is like, well, not the worst time of the year for me, but it's one of them because the playoffs are slowly approaching with basketball, and after the finals, we have that little bit of dead time. So,
Yeah,
but football season, obviously, the best part of the year. But we'll see, man. Next season is always next season for my boys and your boys, man. Always next season.
absolutely. So since we were going into the off season, I'm happy you mentioned that, Jay, because there was a lot of action that took place in the beginning of the month. That's going to be impacting the off season. So at the beginning of the month, former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores launched a lawsuit against the NFL and three of its teams for alleged pattern of racist hiring practice by the league and racial discriminations by the Dolphins, the Broncos, and by the Giants. So the
Right.
lawsuit alleges that the NFL remains rife with racism, particularly when it comes to hiring and the retention of black head coaches, coordinators, and general managers. All right. So for those people that aren't familiar with Brian Flores or aren't familiar with what's been going on, I'll give a brief summary. All right, so Brian Flores was fired last month following 3 seasons with the Dolphins. All right, he inherited the team after they posted just losing records, losing seasons. I think their last 9 previous seasons before he got there were all losing seasons. So you know when he got in there year one, they had a losing season, but then he guided them to back winning seasons. Um, And I believe last season they won their final 8 of their last 9 games. All right.
Right.
So for whatever reason, he was fired. He was let go, right? Even after winning 2 back-to-back winning seasons. What took place afterwards is where it gets interesting, because Flores subsequently interviewed for the Giants, the New York Giants head coaching opening position, but
Right.
he alleges that it was a sham process for the reason that the team had already decided to hire Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. All right, so what took place and what's reinforcing his saying that it was a sham process is that he received a text message from Brian Belichick. I'm sorry, not Brian Belichick, Bill Belichick from the Patriots, right? Everybody knows Bill Belichick. So, they have a pre-existing relationship. So apparently Coach Belichick believed that he was sending a message to Brian Daboll, right? Congratulating him on getting the job, on getting the Giants head coaching position. So
Right.
he texted Flores congratulating him and saying, "Hey, heard you got the job, X, Y, and Z," right? And so, Flores was like, yeah, I didn't even interview. I think you got the
Yeah,
wrong
I didn't. I
person.
was supposed to interview tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm interviewing tomorrow." So he's sitting there. So Bill is probably like, "Oh,
Right.
so, 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 you're seeing there. You imagine you're getting a message, saying that, hey, congratulations on a position that you didn't even interview yet, right? So obviously that message was sent to the wrong Brian. Okay, so what it's appearing to be, or what it looks like, is that they are already hired, and news is getting around the league because remember, Bill Belichick coaches for an entirely different team, right?
Right.
But obviously, of course, everybody has relationships with each other, and so if word is already getting out that they're already hiring a coach before the next interviewee is coming in, that's a problem there, right? So, in the lawsuit, Flores alleges that his interview was simply a means for the Giants to comply with the league's Rooney Rule, which requires teams to interview at least 2 external minority candidates for a vacant head coaching position. Of course, the Giants have issued a statement saying that Flores' allegations are they called it disturbing and simply false. All right.
Mhm.
So a lot of things have been taking place for this. We'll definitely get into more of where Flores' position is right now. But as this information came out, Jay, what was your take on it?
Listen, um, it's a couple of issues, right? Because you got this singular issue, and then you got the bigger issue, right? So I think the one of the biggest problems, and it starts with the Belichick text, is without the Belichick text, right? We have the impression that we had the impression for the last 10, 20 years or whatever, that all of these deals get done in smoky rooms and back rooms, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
just the backroom deals that get done between like the good old boys that know each other, right? Now we're starting to kind of see the evidence of these back channels existing, right? Whether it's Colin Kaepernick winning, a lawsuit, whether it's the stuff that's trickling out, with John Gruden talking about DeMaurice Smith, and nobody knows what everybody knows, right? Whether it's the Cowboys paying cheerleaders, whether it's the Redskins paying cheerleaders, all of this is coming out in court. So
Mm-hmm.
it's no longer rumors, right? So I say this all to say, and yeah, there are different cases and different facts and factors, but it's all the same in terms of we wouldn't have known about any of it if it wasn't for lawsuits, right? And the second thing is the NFL has done a lot to cover it up so it doesn't come down past the administrative and owner level, right? So we have all of this evidence that's emerging, that's confirming what everybody's been saying, right? Which is everybody loves the Roonies. The Steelers are a legendary organization. The spirit of the rule is cool, but it's a bullshit rule because all they're really doing is parading black candidates in on the last day when they've already decided who their guy is. And it's clear evidence of it, right? That's why he's not blackballed. He's working for the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so um because and I think even Rooney, I think his son had came out a couple of weeks ago and was saying, you know, that the rule is not working in the spirit of where they wanted it, right? So with that being said, I'm gonna be very honest. Like I'm a reserve judgment, right? Because I don't know how much evidence he has of this specific charge that he made, right? And I'm not saying that he's wrong, but in terms of the lawsuit, I don't know if he's gonna win the lawsuit or lose the lawsuit, right? Because his attorney is saying the goal is to increase the influence of Black individuals in hiring, objectivity of hiring, increase the number of Black coordinators, incentivize hiring. So it's more of a global thing. It's kind of for the next guy and the next guy and the next guy. It's not necessarily for him to win money from them. I'm not saying there's not a component, but what I'm saying is it may not be a one for one that a lot of people are looking for.
Yeah.
This very much seems like the type of thing like it's a kick in the ass for the NFL at the end of the day, right? Like it might get settled out of court, whatever the case may be. And then we hear about all the programs. Like remember when they brought Jay-Z in? Remember?
You mean all those programs where they're talking about change and
Yeah,
all the things on the logo,
they
all the
brought
things,
Jay-Z in.
yeah,
Remember
and racism, right? Isn't that what it said in the end zone?
right. All of that. So listen, man. With that being said, though, I'm a reserve judgment, but I think you should take this very seriously, right? Because remember, anybody who doesn't remember, they laughed Colin Kaepernick out of the building too until they gave him $30+ million. You know, so um, the NFL is a billion-dollar organization. They have the best lawyers in the world. They know how to stall. They know how to drag things out. So it's their job to say that has no merit. Same way they say Colin Kaepernick has no merit. They were waiting for the public and everybody else to turn their back, blackball him, and for him to run out of money. But that's not what happened, and they ended up paying him, right? So because we have that, and the thing with John Gruden and the cheerleaders, with all of this going on in all the back rooms, now we have another guy saying the same thing's happening, and then you got the well, I don't want to bring him into it, but you got all of this smoke. So I'm a reserve judgment, but it seems, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't more to come, you know?
Yeah, this is for me, this is inevitable, right? That's the word that continues to come to mind for me, for the reason that this is the only course of action that the NFL seems to understand or respond to. Right, the NFL has had a long and troubled history when it comes to race and head coaches. What was his name? Fritz Pollard broke the coaching color barrier back in the 1921, and then it took 68 more years after that for Art Shell, right, the Raiders coach, for him to lead the team. And then after that, you have the Rooney Rule was created, and then you had the Tony Dungy's and the Lovie Smiths, and it's like it has to get to this point, right? I'm gonna read these stats because that's what speaks volumes a lot of times, right? And when I came across these stats, it made me cringe. All right, so going into the season, right, only one of 32 teams, right? Because that's how many 32 that's how many teams are in the NFL. Only one of those 32 teams employed a Black coach. All right, only 4 employed a Black offensive coordinator, right? So only 4 teams had offensive coordinators. Only 11 teams employed Black special teams coach or coordinators. Only 3 employed Black QB coaches. Only 6 employed Black general managers, and there are 0 Black owners in the NFL, right? So that screams it's a problem. This has been an ongoing problem for years, right? Ongoing problem for years. And the question that you would, when you watch ESPN or you read all these other different articles is, oh, well, how can we fix this problem? How can we fix this problem? How can, this issue be resolved? And it's pretty simple to me, Jay. Like, just hire qualified black coaches. There are
Right.
plenty of them, right? It's really simple. It's right. We don't have to get
Uh,
overcomplicated. It's, if the NFL wanted to, yeah, the programs and the slogans and all these other different, endeavors they sound great, especially for marketing purposes and to the general public. However, if they really wanted to resolve the issue, it's just as simple as a quote. If it ain't nothing to it but to do it, because there are plenty of qualified black coaches out there. You got the
you're
Todd
right.
Bowles, you got the Leslie Frazier's, you got Brian Leftwich, you got my guy that's in Kansas City, that offensive coordinator who's been going on interviews every year while coaching his team to multiple playoff appearances and Super Bowl appearances, right? So, right, it's all they have to do if they wanted to employ coaches, like you said, if they wanted to change that, they have more than an opportunity to do so, but they don't, because there's always been this underlying, racial issue between, as far as whether it's with the league, and I think honestly just kind of overall generally, but the league has like these certain positions where they don't want, or they don't believe that African Americans are equipped or smart enough to be in these positions, right? One of those is the coach, right? And the other one is a quarterback, right? Those are always the positions where it's just like it's it's unheard of for them to have these, these people of color in these
I mean,
positions.
the offensive line is similar.
Yeah. Uh,
But
Anything that
I
requires, like, well, you have to know the playbook, you have to be intelligent, right, in order for you to do these things. So of
I
course,
mean, you know how
you
it is.
know,
Anything that's considered cerebral, right? But
exactly.
I look at it like this too, and I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, but I think, and I'm just speculating, but I think, listen, they could put in as many rules as they want. These are billionaires, right? And they have lawyers that are telling them how to circumvent the rule, right? So as long as you interview this guy, you don't have to hire him. You can hire who you really want, right? So what it's saying is, at the end of the day, it works probably like a lot of things work, right? Like the same way a lot of people we know find jobs, right? Through relationships, through people they know, right? So these are people who are given jobs to a lot of people that we think are unqualified, a lot of personalities that we respect that are on the radio with think they're unqualified too, or just strange picks with the people that are out here, but they're giving jobs to people that they're comfortable with, right? So to make a long story short, I think something drastic has to be done in terms of, like, when the next team goes up for sale, it has to be sold to a majority black or majority owned group. You understand? And I'm not trying to be funny. You need people that have money, right? You
Right.
need Jay-Z, you need Diddy, you need Byron Allen, you need Damon John, you need all of those people to buy a team. Queen Latifah, all these Oprah, you need them to buy a team.
And
You
that's
know
the
what I'm
thing,
saying?
right? You're totally right.
And hopefully, if you had a group that was reflective, or made up of multiple people of color, but in my opinion, my humble opinion, they might be more likely to make that type of choice, right? But right now, you got 32 people in a room who are billionaires and they all look the same. What
Right.
is their incentive to bring somebody who looks like you in, or somebody who is a different gender as of them in? Like, what is the incentive? You know what I mean?
There
There
isn't
is
none.
no incentive
There is none.
until you're in there. You know what I'm saying?
And that's the thing.
So
We don't have any leverage, right? And that's exactly for those reasons that we don't have any leverage, and we don't have any uniformity, right? So, because here's the thing, also, right? When you look at it, yeah, it would be great if we had those, like you said, those individuals, right, to come together as a group, buy a team. So exactly, we're able to
they
do
billionaires.
those situations. Absolutely.
It's a bunch
But
of
here's the thing, though.
billionaires.
And here's another thought, right? What the league is, what? It's predominantly what? 70% African American.
Right.
Okay. So unfortunately, Flores, and same way with Kaepernick, they were fighting these situations by themselves.
Right.
Right. They
Right.
don't have, what I mean? They don't have the leverage, but they also don't have the uniformity of other people supporting them. Right. So if you had 70% of the league, right? Because I'm sure there are some players that are outraged. He's not going to get any support from, of course, from owners, because like you said,
Right.
they have no incentive to. But imagine you had all those players, right? Because most of these players and everything, I imagine that they want to be coaches. They want to have a career beyond, their playing days, but they're not thinking about that, right? They're only thinking about right now. The same thing with Kaepernick. Kaepernick was fighting that by himself. And it was a situation where I'm sure a lot of people felt the same way that he did, but they were worried about, I have to make sure that I can feed my family. I can't take this knee because if I do, I'm not going to be able to play X, Y, and Z, the fallout, so on and so forth, right? Imagine if 70% of the players, right, were like, you know what? We don't like what's taking place. We don't like what's going on. We're not going to play, right? For one game, even give it one game, right? What happens, right? If they got to shut down for the week, that affects the bottom line, right? That's where the leverage comes into play. If everybody is uniform and it's like, hey, well, you know what? We don't like what's going on. We don't like what's happening with these managing practices, the coaches, the coordinators, whatever the situation is. We're not going to play. Yeah, people will lose some game checks, and I'm not going to speak for everybody's situation. But at the same time, that sends a message to the league because the bottom line will suffer. Then it's just like, well, hey, if they realize that they have this leverage, because that's the biggest difference between the NBA and the NFL, is that the players have leverage, right? When they don't want to play, they'll band together. They're not going to play, right? The NFL is like, listen, we know what we can do. We know we have the power, and we know that they're going to operate individually. And that's the thing. Like when Flores decided to launch this lawsuit, I was concerned because I'm like, man, my man is throwing everything away. Because I was fearful that he wasn't going to get a job because I figured of him getting blackballed, and I was figuring like no one else is going to step up and support him,
Well,
and like you said, it was for more, not for him, but for people coming after him that he was opening this door for.
See, this is the thing though, bro. I don't care if the league is 70% black or not, right? The leader sets the tone, right? Who's the leader of the NBA? I ain't talking about the best player, none of that. We can debate that another time. Who's the leader of the NBA?
We all know Bron is the leader. We know that.
LeBron James, right?
Right.
And we have all known for the last 10 years that Chris Paul, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, some of the biggest heavyweights in the game, right? That there are issues that are bigger than basketball in terms of African American and issues that contain our communities of color, that they'll stop playing for. There are issues that the biggest voice in the game will stop playing for, right? And say, nah, we got to either deal with this. We have to shine some attention to this, right? The NBA, and because of that, everybody has fell in line, right? They're all uniform, and the owners know. Right? I'm not saying they do everything right, but they follow the leader. So if James says, yo, you got to honor black culture and you got to move this way, all of a sudden, it ain't controversial to say Black Lives Matter in the NBA, right? That's now, right. Who is the leader of the NFL? If you ask me, it's Tom Brady.
Exactly. So that's what I mean.
Tom Brady, last time I checked, I don't want to make it political, but he's not concerned about issues that affect disenfranchised groups, much and less black people. You understand? A league that you just told me was 70% black, he had the nerve to bring a Trump hat, right? Which some people would consider being terrorized by. I'm not gonna get off on a tangent, but that's in the locker room, right? So this is the guy that's leading the charge. Of course, Colin Kaepernick is gonna be in purgatory until he wins the lawsuit, right? Because if the tone is set by Brady and Brady is saying shut up and dribble, essentially, or the canned response, right. Oh, I love everybody and I love the brothers I play with and all this other crap, right? I mean, everybody else gonna follow suit.
And that's what I'm saying. We don't have any leaders, like you mentioned. We don't have any leaders in a league that's, like you said, is 70% black, right? We have popular figures, right? And if you had enough of those popular figures who are like, hey, you know what? We don't like what's going on. We're the players. If we don't play, there's no bottom line. They're not making money, right? The league, Chris Paul, LeBron James understood that very clearly and say, look, if we don't play, they're not making any money. So everyone needs to roll with us. So again, different cultures, But that's the thing. Like, it's going to be these individual situations. You're going to have the Kaepernicks. You're going to have the Brian Flores who are going to have to fight these things individually. And yeah,
Right.
it'll, individually, okay, like you said, it'll get tied up. And Brian Flores, he came to play. He's got some attorneys from Manhattan. Like, he's going to fight it out, right? But again, it's an individual thing, and some information is going to come out, some information's not. But it's different if it's a whole collective. I hope that there will be more people that are going to come forward. But again, we don't know, right? And
Right.
how much merit is going to be. And that's another thing with the league, like and you mentioned it earlier, is that unfortunately these hirings are based off of the nepotism. It's based off of who all the networking, right? It's not based off of meritocracy, because if it was, Kaepernick would probably still be a quarterback in here, right? It's not
Right.
based off of, right? If you take Brian Flores' name off the top of his resume and you left it blank, you would clearly see that he's like one of the top candidates for the coaching jobs. But because it's Brian Flores on there, that's not going to happen, right? Lovie Smith got hired by the Houston Texans, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that was after the suit came out, right? Because the leading candidate for that position was some player, from some coach from high school,
Yeah, I
right?
know you talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, this is what we're seeing. That's the reaction from the lawsuit. But again, like, these individual ones aren't going to do much change, unfortunately. Like, it'll make some noise, and I'm happy that Brian Flores got the job. But you know why he was able to get that, right? Who offered him that job, or who was able to get him
I
involved
mean,
with that,
listen, man, you're in.
right?
I mean, Mike Tomlin, and then it's the Steelers organization, man. Like
Exactly.
they're
So they had to
they're
look. Yeah, they
setting the
had to look
tone.
out for him. They had to look out for him
So
because he wasn't going to get a job, and that's what they've been doing for each other, right? All these other
yeah,
teams have been doing it, and that's why he was able. He's overqualified for that position. I'm happy he's working, but
right,
and I know Brian Flores is overqualified for that. But Mike Tomlin had to be like, look, I see what's happening out here to my guy. I gotta look out for him, because if
right.
not, he's not going to be anywhere. He's going to be fighting that thing on his own.
Yeah,
So,
see how that
I
turns
mean,
out.
again, it's a lot of things. Just that question, when reporters and media are like, well, what can be done? It can be done if the league wanted it to be done, right? If they wanted to change, they have more than opportunities, and they're able to do it. But again, of course, it's still in that, they're still going to be doing these backroom deals. They're still going to be doing, the good old boys clubs. But I'm hoping that, more people will come out. That's my hope, because it's strength in numbers, and it is getting harder and harder for them to kind of like, dodge this when it's so clear. We just read these stats. It's very evident. you
Yeah,
know,
definitely gonna be following this one, man. It ain't going away.
Absolutely. All right, so staying in the sports world, Jay. All right. Now what's been one of the most popular sports topics in the Philly area, right? All right. Recently, we just had the All-Star game
Mm-hmm.
yesterday. It was great. Great game, competitive. I'm not sure about that the slam dunk contest, but that's a story for a different episode. All right. But the biggest thing before the All-Star game was the trade deadline.
Right.
And the biggest trade by far that everyone was discussing was the Ben Simmons and what's my man's name from Brooklyn?
James Harden.
James Harden trade. All right. So Ben Simmons is going to Brooklyn. James Harden is coming to Philly. All right. However, outside of the trade itself, the subject of mental health has been a part of this conversation for the past few months now. All right. So try to do a brief summary of everything of how all this kind of came apart. All right. So Simmons was coming off an incredible season last year. However, during the he started having struggling during the series against the Atlanta Hawks during the Eastern Conference semifinals. All right, so he had a poor performance. He was struggling with free throws. He's passing up wide open dunks after the game. Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid had some, kind of threw him under the bus publicly. Things got bad enough that Simmons said he wanted to trade. He was holding out from the Sixers. Even during that process over the summer, he had said that his mental health was in bad shape. I think over the summer he had reportedly sought some mental health services through the NBA or through the NBA Players Association. Um, he had mentioned a lot of that news wasn't met very favorably by like the Philly fanfare in October.
Mm-hmm.
It became shortly that when he didn't want to see, he said he wasn't mentally prepared to play for Philly. All right. So when that information also came out, the team had just said that they weren't going to be paying Simmons. They started fining him. He reported the training camp late. He had an issue with Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers sent him home. And then after that, he informed them that he wasn't going to be able to play due to his mental health struggles. All right. Turned into a big thing. And then, over the whole year, he sat out for the majority of the season. He just got recently traded. A lot was going on, Jay. I mean, you saw it kind of unfolding. It was a lot that was being said in the media. As all this played out, and now we're at this point, right? So now he's no longer a Sixer. He's with the Nets. What is your opinion on how all of this took place, and especially the mental health component, as far as that's been up in the air and it's been, unfortunately a topic of discussion?
I mean, listen, I think a lot, like with a lot of things, you have people that are they're conflating things and having two different conversations sometimes, and about the same thing. Mm-hmm. And what I mean is this, right? I'm not making this up because this is public knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kevin Love has anxiety, right? He's said he's diagnosed with anxiety, right?
Well known about it. Yep.
Paul George has said he has anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if Paul George or Kevin Love says, "Yo, I can't play because my anxiety," or Kevin Love has came out and said his anxiety had affected him in the playoffs, I think, or he had to do something. Don't kill me if I'm not getting exactly right.
Right.
But he has said it has affected him during playtime, right? That is, in my humble opinion, right? So just so we be clear what we're talking about, that's mental health affecting your job. Yeah, and you get up in the morning, your anxiety's out of control, whatever the case may be. Stress triggers your anxiety, whatever. That's mental health affecting your job. Meaning, like, when you tell your coach that you can't play because of that, or whatever the case may be, it is none of anybody's business anymore. Just the same way if you had broke your leg. Now, I think what's aggravating and confusing a lot of people, and I'm not saying this is the case because Ben Simmons has never addressed it, and because of HIPAA, he doesn't necessarily have to.
Right.
But what he's describing is stress. And why people are annoyed is because the stress that he's appears to be describing appears to coincide with his poor play, right? And the Philly fans responding to it. So then you have people, again, you have sports fans who are emotional, they have agendas, they're upset. So then you have people throwing accusations like, "Yo, you're faking a mental health diagnosis." And you're gonna have people from our side like, "Yo, it's none of your business, protecting," but they could be talking about different things, right? If Ben Simmons is diagnosed with depression, if he's diagnosed with anxiety, and this situation somehow triggered his anxiety, right? It's none of anybody's business.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason why you have this conversation from the beginning is that from the time, I've been in Philly I've been living here just like you. From the time Ben Simmons came here to now, you correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if anybody knew, not that we were entitled to know, but I didn't hear anything about a mental health history until that shot got missed, and for me, we're intelligent people. Somebody who misses a shot or is having, think about it, somebody who is having some problems making free throws and they go see a sports psychologist. To me, that's not a mental health disorder. That's stress, right? These are problems that we deal with. Just because you go to see a counselor doesn't mean you have a mental health disorder. You understand? You can go to a counselor for relationship problems, for stress. You don't have a mental health disorder. And I think because we're playing in this gray area game, you have the agents in them saying mental illness, mental health problem, leave us alone. And then you got the team saying, and people around him saying, it looks like a person that can't handle stress. And we'll probably never know, but you have people talking about things that could be totally different.
Right.
But
I mean,
what'd you get out of it? Because I'm sure you might have looked at it totally different than me.
I
You know what
mean,
I'm
so
saying?
I looked at it like from a slightly different lens, and I took it really a lot of it just at face value, right? So like I'm not skeptical if Ben Simmons says, you know, if he, whenever he's talking about stress or it's the mental health issue, or he says his mental health is not good, right? I take him seriously when he raises it, right? I got to take it at face value because I don't know him, I don't never treated him, whatever the situation. What I found interesting was that how like it was so hypocritical, right? Especially with the Philly sports community. So when Lane Johnson missed 3 games, right,
Mhm.
earlier this season, and he said, well, you know, he had the support of the team, and you know, even the fan base listening to like sports radio, they were supportive of him, right? Same thing with Brandon Brooks, right? When he overcame talking about his anxiety and his stress, right? People were supportive, like, oh, he's rising above it, he became a Pro Bowler, all these other different things. So my whole thing, well, what's the difference, right? The difference is what I've noticed, especially as far as like in Philly, is that because they already started having a pre-existing issue with Ben, right? Because one, Ben is young. As far as we're talking about his sports playing, you
Mhm.
know, a lot of people wanted him to start shooting threes. They wanted him to get a jump shot. That wasn't something that he was interested in, right? He was
Right.
completely like, no, I'm gonna play my way, and this is what I'm gonna do. Like, you guys want me to shoot threes, I want to become defensive player of the year. So at that point, it was already frustrating for a lot of the fans, right? And you know, fans are very fickle, they're very fair weather, right? Now, if he was playing well, right, I think there would be more support. If he would have came out and said, "Hey, my mental health or my I'm not doing well mentally these days," there would have been support. But because
Mhm.
they already had this issue with him, as far as him not making the free throws or him not doing the jump shot or playing the way people wanted him to, there was an issue. People, I know a lot of people call in question the timing of him talking about the mental health thing, especially with, you know, the fines coming through and so on and so forth. All right,
Right.
so yeah, it's perfectly okay for people to raise questions and kind of look at it like, okay, this seems kind of coincidental or this seems convenient, right? Here's another thing. When people say that, well, hey, we didn't hear about him talking about this until it reached like its tipping point, or all of a sudden where he said it's getting real bad. I mean, the same thing could be said with Naomi Osaka, right? We didn't hear about her having mental health issues until she had to withdraw from the tournament.
That,
Same,
that's why.
you know,
That's
same
why
thing with
I asked the question. I
what's
wanted
her
to know.
face? Yeah,
That's
same.
why I wanted to know your opinion on, because Howard. I don't necessarily disagree with you, right? But
Right.
Howard Eskin, right? He says,
Oh yeah, he's the worst.
um, yeah, well, you know, he
He's
said
out of pocket.
it's an insult to those who suffer, right, and who really suffer, right, and it's convenient that it happened, that right after he traded, right, he was fine just after he got traded. That kind of is out of bounds because you can't really determine by how whether somebody's smiling or not, whether they're doing well. But I guess my question to you is this, because remember when we were talking about the kids with the mental health days, right?
Right.
And I was saying to you, it may sound off-putting to people, but I don't think unless you have a diagnosed mental health disorder, you don't need a mental health day, right? Because stress is a part of life, right? Because think about how trauma is thrown around nowadays. Mental health is thrown around the same way. You have people who in a conversation will tell you, stop talking to me like that, my mental health,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I'm saying, when you have people in the media just saying, and his representatives being as vague as my mental health, right? A lot of those people that we talked about, Kevin Love, Lane Johnson, like they came out and said like, yo, I have anxiety, I saw a therapist, whatever the case may be. So it's fair and not saying that they have to, right? But as soon as they say that, we know that this isn't like a person who I just can't get along with my boss, right? And I'm not accusing of Ben Simmons of that, but what I'm saying is, if we talk about why he's getting the reaction that he's getting, is because all of these things are lining up in terms of your performance not going well, the fans not, responding, you wanting to trade, and then now we have vague mental issues about mental health. So I'm not speculating because again, he ain't my client and I don't know. And it's both sides of it, right? We have sports fans are very emotional, right? And they have an agenda, you know. So no, they haven't been very nice to him. But I just think unfortunately, like we're never gonna know because he's not required to tell us, you know. So
And
we're
so,
never gonna
and
know.
that's
It's
and
just a
that's the thing.
conversation that we're just gonna keep having.
And so that's the thing. Like similar, like when we had the conversation about like the mental health days for school, right?
Right.
It's not similar, but it is in some form or fashion with the Ben Simmons thing. Because I think overall, right? Can someone use mental health as a reason that they're not performing well? Yes, right.
Right.
Can someone take advantage of that? Sure, they can. Um, Taking a look at as far as like when we talk about pro athletes, you know that they're human just like we are. Unfortunately, you know, they've had to be one in a million as far as like their talent level, as far as their personalities, just so they can perform on the biggest stage every day and be criticized for it and so on and so forth. So
Right.
they have some unique pressures. At the same time, they have some of the same pressures that they all do, that we all do, because they're human. Now, a lot of people don't know is that with Ben Simmons last year, I believe his sister accused his half brother of molesting her. And then it led to like this prolonged legal battle. And
Mm-hmm.
so I imagine that took some type of a toll on him. I mean, I'm not him. I don't know how he's built or, you know, but when people kind of aren't privy to this information, and neither, like you said, should we have to be, because it's none of our business. Like, you never know again what exactly is kind of taking place in that person's life. And unfortunately, they still have to go out. They still have to go out and perform like everything's Gucci, right? Because their brand depends on it. Their team or their boss, their stats depend on all these other different responsibilities, right? The main thing where I felt like, okay, more information that he chooses to share with us and not share with us. Like I said, it could be stress, it could be some trauma or some other different things that we're not aware of. What really concerns me about this whole thing, just kind of outside or what's contributing to his situation, is that with all of the skepticism, like you said, of like the lining of events, it really detracts from what the most important issue is, right? And it's because there's a lack of trust between him and the organization and the fans. It's like it causes like this rift, or I feel like it's actually affecting like the progress that we've made, just like I think as the general public, regards like understanding the importance of addressing mental health when it comes to like the athletes, right? Because we've just talked about like the Naomi Osaka's, the Simone Biles, right? I think we've come a long way, and like people kind of are hopefully are looking at athletes in a different way, and like, yo, you know what, they have a lot of things that they're experiencing on top of whatever they have going on in their personal life, on top of the stress and things. I feel like with this kind of takes two steps back, because now we're calling into question, like not you, but like the media, all the other different people that have agendas. Like I feel like it's counterproductive to us actually being more empathic towards these individuals, right? We're putting on this pile, but it's like it's good for us. I get it how some people are kind of skeptical of it, but I feel like if we start looking at him sideways with the screw face, or saying, well, is he really faking? Is he just using him? What happens when it's the next particular athlete?
Well,
I don't.
I'm not saying that, but what I'm saying is this, right? And I'm kind of trying to look down the street and around the corner with this. I'm looking like, where's the line? Because like you were saying, his sister, all of that, and I get it, like that's family stuff, right? But none of that is in the DSM. Like that's not diagnosable, right? And this is my point. And I'm not. It's not a. This is why I brought it up with the days and now. It's always going to be a line. Think about it, because as much stuff as Ben Simmons could have went through everything in the world this year, right? But he can't diagnose himself with general anxiety disorder or depression. He can't wake up one morning and say, it's too much for me. I got anxiety. I'm not showing up for work. Right. Meaning like it doesn't work like that. That's why we have a symptom and a threshold. You know what I mean? There would have to be things going on in his life to the point where Dr. Kyle would have had to diagnose him with the anxiety. And none of us are privy to whether any of this went on. But what I'm saying to you is, when I see Simone Biles, and now I'm just assuming, right? But when I hear Kevin Love talk, when I hear Lane Johnson talk, I'm assuming that they have been diagnosed with these things, right? I'm not assuming that they are looking at TikTok and they like, oh, I got all this stuff going on in my life. I got anxiety. So now I got to call a team. I'm just not going to show up. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And because I assume that that's the case, the Eagles can't really probably have nothing to say about it because, again, they're not privy to his health record, but it's very easy for somebody to verify, I got diabetes, I got sickle cell, I go to therapy. You understand what I'm saying? Without anybody elaborating on what I have, blah, 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 blah. You understand what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm not even saying it's not a rebuttal necessarily to what you're saying, but think about if we lived in a world, right, where somebody's parents could call the school and say, my son got anxiety today. He's depressed today. I mean, and think about if we lived in a world where, you know, a basketball player could do that and still get paid, or, you know, as there's a threshold even for us. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, that's not anxiety. You're just a nervous guy. like you know, anxiety is different. Like, we're around people who are sad all the time. They're not necessarily depressed, right? Because clinical depression requires a threshold. So again, we're all just speculating, but I think I'm just trying to come to talk about why I think people are reacting the way they are, because I think, and I could be wrong, maybe they don't have as much information as they would like, you know?
I think it's that, and I think because, again, the money component of it, right? It's a situation where, you know what I mean? Like, because you have the money, the fines, and, you know, it looks like, oh, well, he's trying to, like you said, stay home and not, you know what I mean, continue to get paid, and he's not giving information. And then I feel like because he had the pre-existing frustration, like, relationship with kind of the fans and with the team, because they're asking him to, like, hey, we want you to do your game this way, and he's like, nah. And so it was just kind of leading up to things. But, you know, we'll see
Yeah.
You know how this plays out. You know, he's not playing yet up there for your Brooklyn Nets, so we'll see, man. You know,
Yeah, man.
we'll see how it
Interesting, bro.
plays out.
Yeah.
Speaking of reducing harm, right? The
Okay.
federal government will begin to pay for. There was an article that came out that said the federal government will begin to pay for crack pipes and meth pipes as safe smoking kits, as part of harm reduction strategy. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna read from the article. All right. It said the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Agency has allocated roughly $30 million for a harm reduction program grant, which includes funding syringe exchange programs, reversal drug test kits to detect fentanyl, safe smoking kits and supplies, among other traditional measures. They also, it said, these an HA spokesperson reportedly confirmed to the Washington Free Beacon that these safe smoking kits will provide pipes for the consumption of any illicit substance to reduce the infection of, or which can potentially occur through cuts and sores. All right. Now, as we continue to kind of flesh this out and kind of monitor this, there was a retraction that came out later on regarding this article and said the claims are false. This was from the White House and Dr. Rahul Gupta, and says that there were no pipes that were going to be distributed to the public. It says the safe smoking kit contains alcohol swabs, lip balm, clean syringes, fentanyl test strips, and other products, but no crack pipes or all right. But I think this brings up another question. Even though, you know, they put out the retraction, um, as far as that ongoing debate, and there's always been this ongoing conversation regarding some of these harm reduction programs. These programs have been around for years in different capacities, and it's been always been an ongoing situation as far as their effectiveness and what they promote and the goal. um Jay, not just on this article but just kind of overall on some of these harm reduction government sponsored programs, what's your opinion on these?
It depends on the individual level. Like harm reduction in general, I'm in favor of, right? And
Hmm.
people have to understand what it is in terms of like practical strategies aimed at reducing negative consequences associated with drug use, right? Some of the principles: meeting people where they're at, minimizing drug use rather than simply ignoring it, other things, right? I understand some of the tactics people may be frankly disgusted by, right? But we got to make room for the fact that some people are never going to stop using drugs, right? So some things in terms of HIV testing, safe sex resources, right, with people that are going to be out in the street, different places, right? I agree with some of the tactics, right? I think what made this so controversial is because, again, we had this conversation, right? And they
Hmm.
responded, they made a retraction, but again, when you go back and you look at the traditional harm reduction kits, they might not necessarily include crack pipes, but there's paraphernalia included to allow individuals to smoke rocks or meth, right?
Hmm.
So whether we talked about it, whether you call it a stem or whether you call it a whatever you want to call it, listen, that's going to be off-putting to people, right? Especially when you start reading, that this is like a primary focus of you know, um, Biden and Harris's, like, I guess, fight against drugs. But I don't want to call it war against drugs. You know what I mean? Um, I just think it sends the wrong message, right? I think that's why you got to be very careful, right? Because I think this is a program that had millions and millions of dollars behind it, right? And it was kind of one of those things that if this article didn't come out, it would have kind of just slipped through the cracks, right? Um, Honestly, I that's why I think it has to be. You have to look at each individual piece because the putting the pipes in those harm reduction kits, like, and the reason they gave for it, I don't get it at all, right? Whether you like or support intravenous drug use, I can understand why somebody will provide not drugs but clean needles, right? And I can understand why you would provide birth control and condoms and those type of things, right? To people that are gonna be on the street, right?
Hmm.
Because you're preventing the spread of other diseases. But giving people see, I'm saying crack pipes, but giving people that type of drug paraphernalia, I'll never understand it, especially with the history in the United States with crack cocaine. And it's just insulting when you see language like it's prioritized for communities of color who have been greatly impacted by substance use disorder. But we're giving out stems. I mean, I don't know. And I get it. They're gonna want to say the right wing took it and used it in the wrong way, but these aren't things that should be in. What do you expect? Like, you know what I mean? So, what did you think, man? Because I don't think I really have a new answer for anybody. Like, I'm as horrified and disgusted as anybody else that we're even having this conversation.
I'm I think the biggest common misconception, regarding harm reduction programs is that it condones or encourages drug use, right? That's why I think a lot of people immediately see, oh, they're giving them the paraphernalia, you're giving them a portion or some aspect of the drug or to use the drug, you're encouraging it, right? You're just telling them to go out and use and go kill themselves, when that's not the case, right? The goal is working towards abstinence from drugs or alcohol or whatever you know the addiction may be. Um and it's also, the harm reduction is recognizing that everybody is at a different place, right? And also that the recovery process takes time, Um, I think I see both sides of it, right? I understand it from, it's unsettling to go into any type of area and you see, or any type of designated area where people are using, right? It's very unsettling, right? Whether it's a safe space as far as like a clinic, or you're going past like a house where people are just using, whatever the situation may be, right? It's unsettling just to kind of know that that's taking place. So I get the optics of that. At the same time, as a clinician, I understand where they're coming from as far as that they're trying to reduce the damage that's done by unclean equipment, right? That's being used for injecting, that's being used, it's a situation where, okay, people are using, but when you have this type of initiative, you have a situation where if someone overdoses, they're able to get help, right? If that person is in a place where say, hey, well, I don't want to use anymore, those safe spaces or those endeavors offer a connection to get treatment. So I kind of see both areas because you're trying to eliminate or reduce just like you mentioned, some of the diseases or some of the other different issues that come along that are associated with the larger issue that's at hand. It's you know you got to look at it from, like you said, a person to person thing. It's also understanding that they're trying to keep from, okay, if we're talking about like heroin, if you're giving out clean needles, then okay, you're reducing the likelihood that that person may contract hep C and then take that home to their family member, right? Or take their home to their loved one or whatever. But it's still unsettling, just kind of the thought process of it, right? So I
And
think, I don't know if there's a clear cut thing. I see both sides of it.
listen,
But it's it's yucky at times when you're thinking about just kind of the steps that are involved in the process,
and then I think that's why, like, certain people, like, that's why certain people with certain personalities have certain jobs, right? Certain people are kind of tailor-made for certain things. Some people, the way they think, the way they reason, and I'm not even saying that they're wrong, because we need people like this in the world too. Some people just don't have that much compassion for somebody that just compulsively uses drugs. They're not going to say, take the $30 million and let's give them safe smoking kits. Now I know that sounds harsh, right? But there are also people that feel like you know certain segments of people who have committed certain crimes, right? Like that they should serve their sentences without certain privileges, right? I'm
Mhm.
not saying that's all right. But what I'm saying is we have different opinions in this world, right? And we have to make room for all of them. And we have to understand that there's a segment of people out here that they don't use drugs, they don't commit crimes, they go to work, right? And they do not understand giving $30 million to help people who don't even want help, right? Maybe you will be able to meet them at the methadone clinic and be like, okay, we're going to help these people that they're at least in the planning stage, right? But you have to, again, I don't have to agree with them, but I have to respect the person that's like, listen, you're chasing them down to give them these safe smoking kits, right? There are some people who are just never going to understand that, right? The same way we can probably advocate for people all day for increased like mental health services for incarcerated folks, right? And you got some people that are going to be like, yo, they're criminals. They don't, why do they need mental health treatment, right? And we could, you know, we kind of got to convince the people, who are kind of on the edge, right? But when it comes to like substance use and things like that, you're never going to convince people. And this is the extreme end, right? This is the extreme end. Like, remember a couple of years ago when they were talking about, I think they might have did it in Portland already, where they have legal places legally where you can kind of go and shoot heroin and different
Yeah,
things,
there are the safe injection sites and things, right?
right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of controversy about that, right? I still don't know how I totally feel about that, right? Some people are going to tell you it totally encourages drug use, and then you're going to have people on the other side with facts and statistics talking to you about how it reduces this and that, and it has a positive impact on public health in general. So some people are built like all of us. Sometimes our roles are different. So Listen, I don't expect everybody to understand. And like I said, I understand, the condoms. I understand, the clean needles. I don't understand. They, I'm, I'm not even saying I'm coming around, but I'm not there yet with the crack pipes. So
Yeah,
it is
it's
what
I
it
think
is.
it's something I feel like they're still spinning their wheels. They're trying to come up with these different initiatives as far as trying to meet people where they're at, and um, but unfortunately, like you said, there are gonna be some endeavors where people are gonna kind of have to get their hands dirty with the nitty gritty, and if you don't understand that world, you don't understand that culture of being an addiction or what goes on, it's going to be really difficult for anyone else to kind of see like, well, why are we pushing our resources into that to those people, and a lot of judgment. So um we'll see. But it
Yeah,
is
man.
it's tough, it's not easy at all right, Jay. And
Yeah.
finally, there was an art contest that was established by the New Hampshire Children's System of Care Advisory Council to combat stigma associated with mental illness. So there were a group of middle schoolers and high school students that were invited to submit a 2-minute film, a creative writing piece, or another piece of art that expressed something about mental health struggles. And unlike previous years, where instead of focusing on mental illness awareness, a lot of the pieces that were exhibited where they delved into the artist's personal struggles with mental health. So a lot of the entries showcased a variety of paintings, songs, poems, some videos that portrayed like a deep sense of like isolation or people masking, their reality struggles of where they fit in and other different things. So a lot of the advocates and some of the judges that participated in the contest or that were judging said that there were a lot of emotional pieces that these students um were portraying, and that they decided to share with the rest of the student body and rest of the community. And they said that it spoke volumes of what some of these children were experiencing. So as you were reading through this article, what was your takeaway from it?
Listen, I thought it was. I wasn't surprised. Listen, mental health and the arts kind of have intersected. We've seen it, right before our eyes in a lot of different places. You walk through any museum, some of your favorite, most famous artists, some of the best work or most famous work with, either was just came out of a trauma or was done at a traumatic time in their life, different things like that. We know the history of mental health and music, all of that stuff. So to see like kids use it as a coping mechanism in terms of expressing their feelings, what they're going through, I'm not surprised. I think what I was shocked about was how extreme the content was, right? Um, it's kind of a reflection of popular culture, right? So you had a lot of children talking about depression, suicidal ideation, um, eating disorders, right? I remember that one picture where she was writing starved, 100 pounds, and healthy, and all of this. Um, it's one of these things where I think this is a project that should be replicated in a lot of different schools, and I'll tell you why. Because I think this would do a lot of good on the middle school and the high school level, because we got to remember, like, um, I think they would catch a lot more problems in the beginning with situations like this, right? Because obviously our adolescents aren't as verbal as adults, and we can kind of extend that even into the high school, right? Because sometimes we give those kids a little bit more credit than we should. Teenagers are verbal when they want, right? But yelling your feelings because you're mad or doesn't really count, right? As being emotionally appropriate in terms of being expressing your feelings. So I think stuff like this could help, right? Because again, I think they feel more comfortable expressing their feelings, and you get them more genuinely when they're expressed through like the arts. But what did you think when you read this?
I think this in particular, especially the pieces that they were showcasing, I mean, this is an implication that these kids are experiencing a great deal. This
Mhm.
is like we've talked about in previous episodes, this is how kids communicate. And so I absolutely agree with you in the sense of, yeah, I think more schools should be incorporating this or some form of this program where they're allowing kids to, tell their story or express what they're experiencing. This could, like you said, provides a lot of information, right? If the kids are able to express what this is what they're experiencing, this is like, hey, you know what? I didn't know Johnny was going through this. I didn't know that, Samantha was experiencing this. Like, this is that foot in the door, right?
Right.
This is that,
Right.
hey, you know what? You know, let's dive more into this. How often are you feeding it? This is a conversation starter. At the very bare minimum, this is a conversation starter for you to see what your student body is experiencing. I want to applaud the New Hampshire Children's System of Care Advisory Council for them even putting something like this in place, because this is providing a platform for these kids who obviously are experiencing a lot, right? We've talked about in previous episodes what the past 2 years have been like, right? For kids that are experiencing with the pandemic and the shutdown. And
Hmm.
then, what they're experiencing at home, what they're experiencing family, what they're experiencing at school, right? A lot of times, unfortunately, we as adults just kind of overall, even as parents, we kind of like overlook that, these kids, their issues aren't as important as ours are, right? They're not experiencing the stress, they're not experiencing all these other different things, right? So we invalidate them. But I feel like this is the perfect opportunity for us to start having these conversations with kids, man. Like, these kids didn't hold back, right?
Right.
These kids went full steam ahead and were putting what they're experiencing. And we all know that art can be interpreted as many ways, but this seems pretty straightforward, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like this is the opportunity that I think a lot of schools and a lot of districts should start putting into place, where you want to know what your kid is experiencing, you want to know what your student body is going through. This is the perfect opportunity for them to do it. And I like the fact that they had poetry, they had art, you can shoot a video. Like, you really allow kids to become creative. Like you said, use it as a therapeutic tool, but this is also the window into what's going on.
Yeah,
So,
man.
like, we need more programs like this, like ASAP, honestly.
I mean, then you just look kind of at New Hampshire. They said at the time when this was done, they had 22 kids waiting on inpatient care. Um, 8.5 psychiatrists per 100,000 kids in 2015. And then they did a survey. 19% of high school kids had thoughts of suicidal ideation. So it's obvious. I mean, that's New Hampshire. I'm sure if we looked in Georgia, if we looked in New Jersey, you're going to see different numbers, of course, but the issue is going to be the same, right? You're going to have a lot of, we started talking about this months ago with numbers of mental health disorders with kids spiking since, the pandemic. And I just think it's just, again, things like this, whether it's an art contest, whether you're encouraging kids to kind of do PSAs or videos about their own experiences. The goal is to kind of find a way to incorporate these activities into the school environment, right? That's how you incorporate positive mental health um, habits into the environment, and you want to make this part of the self-care conversation, right? You want to bridge all of these things, right? Self-care, expression of their feelings, appropriate emotional expression, emotional regulation. You want to bring all these issues to the forefront, and these are the easiest ways to do it, right? The same way we want to encourage kids to incorporate self-care into their daily routine. You want to incorporate activities like this into kind of the school environment and the curriculum, and you'll start catching more kids at the time when you could really help them. So,
Yeah, I think,
you know,
in addition, the only thing I'll add to it, to what you already highlighted, was it promotes engagement, right? This is a good way to get them engaged, right? Kids love to be creative and all these other different forms, music, art, writing, all these other different um manners for them to express themselves. And I feel like if you say, hey, you know what, show us what you got, show us what's going on in your way, it allows them to personalize their message, right? It allows them to engage with you. And then also it sends the message like, you know what, maybe, the schools care, right? If like you want to hear from what I'm going through, you want to hear what I'm saying, and you're gonna allow me to do it
Right.
in my manner, oh, bet. That might be, like you said, that first step in getting them engaged and being able to catch them so we can be, more proactive in getting them that help, right? Like you said, the numbers are gonna be high, but I imagine that they'll be even higher because imagine how many of these are unreported.
Right.
But if you got kids engaging in activities like this, they're more forthcoming, trust builds, all these other different factors. So yeah, this is dope. I hope that this gets duplicated in a lot of other different districts and states. This is great. I like this.
Yeah, man. See what happens with that.
Yeah. Jay, anything else before we get out of here, bro? We talked about a lot of good conversation, good content.
Nah, man, just we're gonna get back to a regular schedule. But definitely appreciate everybody hanging in with us over the holidays. And just want to thank everybody for listening. Please continue to, like the videos, share the videos. Appreciate it. Definitely humbled by the support. And remember to prioritize your mental health.
Absolutely. We appreciate that. Hope you enjoyed being here with us. We enjoyed having you. Like you said, continue to subscribe, comment, promote ideas, send Jay and I and also on our Instagram and on our Facebook, the Black Psychologist Podcast on those sites and pages. Submit ideas. If you see articles, send them our way. We love the feedback from everybody. We love the conversation. So we appreciate it. So wishing everybody a good mental health for the rest of the week. And until next time, we'll talk again. All right, Jay.
All right, bro.